Hello and welcome to Gatherverse News Unscripted. I'm Raphael Timmons. I'm your host on Tuesdays. Welcome to the show. As the development of AI continues to power on, we've seen some of these discussions about the big picture, broader implications of what AI is going to mean for the future of humanity. We've seen Elon Musk, Bill Gates discussing this. Are we headed towards a sort of apocalypse, a Matrix Terminator kind of endgame scenario, a huge disaster? But today, I wanted to focus on what we're seeing in the immediate, in the present, concerning AI and workers throughout the world. So, Priya David Clemens, Gatherverse News' executive producer, is going to join me, and we're going to get into it.
Hey, Raphael. I think by the end of this show, we might actually get back to that like Terminator, end of the world, apocalypse type conversation because there are so many concerns right now about where this technology is going. So let's see where we end up because I know we've got a lot of news stories that we want to get through today. And we're going to kick it off with some concerns about how much people are really being paid to do some of the work out there, a labor discussion.
Absolutely. We saw a story just come out from NBC News. They interviewed this young man from Kansas City, Alex Severo. He's a contract worker for OpenAI and their ChatGPT software in particular. Now, Alex has expressed concerns about the fact that he's only paid $15 an hour with no benefits, while OpenAI seemingly is creating this product that stands to make billions, or who knows, even more, probably just billions. But he has major concerns about how he's getting paid right now and the benefits that he has. Priya, do you feel like that this may be justified?
I mean, yeah, definitely billions plus. I think Microsoft has invested what, like 11 billion or something into OpenAI. It's like crazy amounts of money. It's a question when you look at like the federal minimum wage. Even here in California, the minimum wage for all businesses in 2023 is $15.50 an hour. So 15 is not that far off. And in Kansas, we're talking about like 7.25 an hour for minimum wage. I do wonder about that, the pushback. How much should contractors be making if they're working in other places? What is the work that they're doing? I don't think we have a system set up whereby right now everyone who works in a corporation benefits from the upside of that corporation equally. Like that's just not how capitalism is set up to work. On the other hand, we certainly see problems with capitalism and the system of labor that we have right now that has created these enormous wealth gaps that are just continuing throughout the nation. So I think it's a fair question to bring up, a fair question to keep in our minds as we move forward, because there is a ton of money that is going into these companies, as we see here in San Francisco, and that will continue to make a lot of money. So what happens to those downstream? I mean,
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. I didn't mean to stop you.
No, you're all good. I was just going to say, yeah, you're right. It really does bring up a broader structural question. It's an extension of what we've already seen. Again, just AI has so much hype around it, so much discussion right now that we're getting another salient example of maybe broader problems that we've seen.
Yeah.
Here at Gatherverse News, though, we are wanting to talk about the intersection of humanity and the good of humanity and also tech. I think that's why we're bringing it up. And to be fair, it's not just an issue that we're seeing in the US. You've been tracking a story actually in Africa, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Where, there was just a vote last week in Nairobi for 150 African workers who work for third party services that provide content moderation services for AI products in particular, for ChatGPT, TikTok, Facebook. They all voted to unionize. And this was a big deal. It's the first. And these content moderators say they've been working in really, really difficult conditions. First of all, the wage, they're looking at a $1.50 an hour. So
Wow.
definitely much lower. Cost of living is different, all of that, but still much, much lower than we're seeing here. Outsourcing work has been also part of the model of American business for a while. And we've seen that. And a lot of times people choose to kind of look away, right? And so, as you're saying, we want to make sure we bring this to light and have people be aware of what is happening and where the work is being done and how it is being done that supports these systems that are becoming part of our lives every day. So, the wages are tough. The work itself is also really difficult, right? People who are working in these content moderation services, they are seeing the worst of the web. They are seeing horrible images from all
Yeah.
sectors. And I don't even want to say what some of those are, but really, really horrible things. And in the West, one of the people who helped bring about this unionization in the West, he was saying there is some content moderation, but there are really strict rules around how that is done. You can only look at an image for, or images for about 20 minutes, and then you have to take a break, and you have access to mental health services. Whereas where this work is happening for this group of people in Kenya, it is not that way. They are looking at images for hours and hours on end. They don't have access to any healthcare professionals. There's just not any sort of support for their work other than the pay. So they're pushing back and saying, it's not okay, it's not right, we need to change that. There's also, let me just add one more thing while we're in Africa. There's also a major lawsuit against Meta right now. It's a $2 billion lawsuit. And civil society groups say that Meta needs to unplug the hate machine. They are suing Meta for allegedly failing to moderate hate speech in Ethiopia during a recent civil war. And they are saying that the platform was allowed to stir up ethnic conflicts and to target individuals during that war. The letter was addressed to Meta, obviously, and there were multiple partners who were involved in this lawsuit. And this is not the first time. In 2017, Facebook was alleged to incite violence against Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. And the trusted partners that Meta sort of put together to say, okay, we're going to try to keep some of these incendiary comments, these hate comments off of our platform. That platform, those trusted partners in Ethiopia told the insider who did this reporting that the company either ignored or delayed responding to urgent attempts to flag these recent concerns, these recent incidents of hate crime. So there is pushback, there is awareness out there in some of these other countries. Specifically right now, we're talking about what's happening in Kenya, Ethiopia, but these all come back to companies that are right here in America, right here in our backyard in Silicon Valley, and what they're doing as they grow.
And to that point, actually, we also have somebody else raising red flags about that. Obviously, there's a ton of difficulty in litigating at an international scale. It's tough to sue a company like Meta. They're based all around the world. Or, as you were saying, also the outsourcing of work, of the worst possible work to other parts of the world is truly awful. But Meredith Whittaker, in particular, is raising the red flag on not AI itself being the danger, but the companies that control AI being the danger. She recently had an article with Fast Company where she is saying the biggest threat to this is the Googles and the Facebooks and what they're going to do with this technology. What are your thoughts? Should this be something that has an international oversight or even more oversight within the US?
Yeah, I think we have a picture of that headline as well from Meredith Whittaker.
Yeah.
You don't even have to ask me for my opinion. Look at Sam Altman. When he recently spoke with Rebecca Jarvis from ABC News, he said, we need regulatory oversight. Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, the company that has unleashed ChatGPT to consumers, it is taking the world by storm. He has said, we need regulatory oversight. We need world leaders to come together and to make some decisions around how this technology is going to be used and deployed. And, there are some other countries that are doing work in this arena, but it's questionable about how that's going to go. Italy had sort of banned some of these products for a while, and now they say, okay, it's back. The EU is ahead of the United States in terms of regulations, but I just spoke with an attorney who's recently here from the UK helping new tech startups. And she said the EU regulations, they're still working their way through the system. And there are a lot of question marks about where it's all going to land. But it does seem like some of the other countries are paying attention in ways that America hasn't been historically. Although we're going to get back to that by the end. I do have a story that we want to get back to about what America is doing right now.
Absolutely.
We do have the annual, speaking of corporations, we do have coming up tomorrow, Google's annual developer conference. So we are expecting them to unveil new capabilities with AI. They're going all in, they're pushing hard. I don't know if you saw this, Raphael. I recently in my Google Docs got a new invitation to be part of Google Labs and to try out
Oh,
their new AI tool. So when you go into Google Docs now, or when I go in, it says, help me write. And you can put in some prompts. I found it a little clunky, frankly. I don't think it's great yet, but it's coming, right? It's all like early days. So we'll see more about that. Google's going to be unveiling new advancements to Bard and to search with generative experiences. Bard is their version of sort of Chat GPT that did not do well out of the gate, but I'm sure will be, they're in a race to try to catch up.
we're
And they're
still
going to be using Bard for coding, math, and logic. And they have another sort of model, a language model called PaLM, which they're going to be unveiling as well. This is called PaLM 2. It's a general use large language model trained on 100 languages. So more news tomorrow on that.
more news tomorrow, and again, things are just moving so fast that it's hard to keep up with everything.
That's right.
Um, and Google's not the only one who's announcing a big development. We have Apple, who's coming out with a VR headset here soon. We know how much Apple matters in the market in general, and especially for adoption. How might this change the game?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this particular headset coming out, and we should just mention that is a mock-up. We don't know
Yeah,
exactly what the headset is going to look like now. There have been some sort of leaked images, but Apple's been pretty tight around that. So we'll find out in the coming, what is that, just 3-4 weeks away? June 5th is when
it's
they're
going to
going to
be
have.
here before we know it. Yeah.
I know it is going to be here before we know it. But right, there have been so many headsets. There's the Rift and the Vive, and Pico has a headset. There are many headsets out there and many models over the years. I've sort of been thinking about Apple's as like the one headset to lead them all, the one ring that's out there that everyone says, let's see what happens with Apple, because then maybe this immersive technology, this metaverse is really going to take off. Well, I mean, we'll see. I think Apple has really been downplaying what's going to happen with this device. The price tag is pretty high. We're talking about $3,000 or so. The headset itself is only one piece. There's also a battery pack that is going to be like, something you could wear on your hip. So it's definitely a different sort of device. They are not using the word metaverse at all. That word has been toxic and sort of nixed from any of their work. They're calling it co-presence or reality. And they've really said that they're working on moving into augmented reality rather than virtual reality. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this. I think there's been so much hype around this headset, and it's been rumored to come for years and years and years. Let's see. It sounds like it's really finally here. So
You
that's
know,
another piece to consider. Do you think you'll try it?
I think I will. I'm an Apple guy. I have the whole Apple ecosystem, and I think if somebody can bring VR into our lives on a regular basis, it's probably going to be Apple. So again, I'm very excited to see what happens with this. Um, just to pump the brakes really quickly, though, as we're seeing all these new technologies kind of come into the fold and become part of our lives. Who knows? Maybe by the end of the year, we'll all be in VR all the time. Maybe we'll do Christmas over VR. Who knows? Apple might make it happen. But with that in mind, there has been again people raising red flags, and one of those people, in particular, has been Tristan Harris.
Mhm.
Priya, tell us about his recent visit to Congress.
Right. So Tristan and a partner, they created The Social Dilemma, if any of you've seen that movie. And they recently came out with a talk called The AI Dilemma. And they are talking about the concerns that they have for how technology is changing our society. They run the Center for Humane Technology here in Silicon Valley. And just a month ago, they went to Congress. And let's listen to what Tristan Harris had to say as he's warning legislators about, looking back at what happened with Cambridge Analytica and the data that was released from that scandal, and what we're looking at now coming forward, and how companies can really use so much knowledge, scanners within headsets, what they're seeing us click, and what that does to our sort of feedback loop in society.
That was an event in which, based on your Facebook likes, based on 150 of your Facebook likes, I could predict your political personality, and then I could do things with that. The reason I described in my opening statement that this is about an increasing asymmetry of power is that without any of your data, I can predict increasing features about you using AI. There's a paper recently that with 80% accuracy, I can predict your same big 5 personality traits that Cambridge Analytica got from you without any of your data. All I have to do is look at your mouse movements and click patterns. So in other words, it's the end of the poker face. Your behavior is your signature, and we can know your political personality. Based on tweet text alone, we can actually know your political affiliation with about 80% accuracy. Computers can calculate probably that you're homosexual before you might know that you're homosexual. They can predict with 95% accuracy that you're going to quit your job, according to an IBM study. They can predict that you're pregnant. They can predict your microexpressions on your face better than a human being can. Microexpressions are your soft reactions to things that are not very visible but are invisibly visible. Computers can predict that. As you keep going and you realize that you can start to deep fake things, you can actually generate a new synthetic piece of media, a new synthetic face or synthetic message that is perfectly tuned to these characteristics. And the reason why I open the statement by saying we have to recognize that what this is all about is a growing asymmetry of power between technology and the limits of the human mind. My favorite sociobiologist, E.O. Wilson, said the fundamental problem of humanity is that we have Paleolithic ancient emotions, we have medieval institutions, and we have godlike technology. So we're chimpanzees with nukes, and our Paleolithic brains are limited against the increasing exponential power of technology at predicting things about us.
Right, so fascinating. I love that quote as well, right? How are our brains catching up with everything that is changing in our world? And I'll just say, kind of following all of this, just in the last week on Thursday, Vice President Kamala Harris met with the heads of Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, and Anthropic at the White House, all companies that are developing artificial intelligence, and President Biden apparently dropped by as well. And they talked about, how they can look at these ethical considerations and the concerns and how to make sure that society stays safe, even with these new technologies. I'm not even sure what that means, what safety looks like. But the Biden administration has announced an investment of $140 million to establish 7 new AI research institutes. Quick note that it's hard to tell any story in tech without bringing up Elon Musk. He always finds a way, but he put a shot out there mocking Kamala Harris, saying we need to get somebody who can manage their own Wi-Fi router. This is not the right person for the job, basically. And who knows? I'm sure she also feels like, whoa, this is a lot to take on, like most of us do, who have not been working in this industry for years. Even those who are working in the industry say that the rate of development, the rate of evolution of these technologies is happening much faster than they had even expected or predicted. So it's a whirlwind that everyone is trying to get their heads around. I personally am glad to see some sort of government action, some sort of federal at least step towards understanding and looking towards what, I don't even know if regulations is the right idea, maybe, but what can they do? What should they do in order to make sure that as much as possible, we are making safe choices, beneficial choices with the development of all of these new technologies?
Hopefully something is better than nothing, because we are headed towards a whole new world. I was watching a talk actually with Tristan recently, where he was talking about the upcoming election is not going to be about the candidates. Not that it has been in a while, maybe, but it's going to be especially about how well the campaigns are able to control this technology, to apply this technology. Again, we saw it with Cambridge Analytica in the 2016 election. So that should be on everybody's radar. It's going to be really interesting. Again, can the regulations catch up fast enough with what's going on? We'll see. That's our show for today. Priya, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to tease what we got going on tomorrow?
Oh, I can't wait, actually. Tomorrow is going to be a great show. Lisa Bernard is the host tomorrow. She is going to be talking to Ian Beecraft, who's a futurist. If you have not yet caught his talk from South by Southwest, it is on YouTube. It's racked up 100,000 views in less than a month. So definitely check that out and see what he has to say about what the future holds. And if you don't have a chance or don't have time to listen to his whole hour, you can come on and listen to him talk to Lisa tomorrow for the first part of the show. And then after that, we have our second in the series of Pioneer Profiles. It is on Walter McMath. Walter McMath is a lawyer who is investigating how to use these sorts of technologies, exploratory, immersive, new technologies in the courtroom. I mean, what would it be like to be able to take a jury in a headset to a crime scene? What would that change about how you can tell stories and how the law is then carried out? So really interesting content on tomorrow's show. Join Lisa for that tomorrow at noon. I know I'll be watching as well.
I was going to say fascinating. I know what I'll be doing tomorrow at noon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been Galaverse News. I'm your host, Raphael Timmons. My guest is Priya David Clemens. This is your home for humanity-centered tech journalism. We'll catch you tomorrow.
See you later.